Hi, everyone. My name is Charlene Platon. I am CEO and co-founder of Fifth Window, and we are a wellness community for healthcare workers who are nursing their joy. And today is a special event. It is now spring, and there is a lot to reflect on this year and this season. And I wanted to share some of my passion and my love for tarot and use that as a tool to help you all as you are all going through your own journeys in healthcare, especially if you are all healthcare leaders. And, I'll just say that in general, my journey with tarot has been something that has been with me during a huge portion of my nursing journey. And, for those of you who are not familiar with tarot, I'm excited to share more about that. I do also have my cards here and excited to dive into this and see what reflections will come through from the cards for all of you who are joining today. And, before I get into that, I do just want to share a little bit about what tarot is and why is it that we use it as a tool for reflection and for spiritual guidance. So just a quick history about tarot. It has a very interesting history. It didn't always start out as this tool that was, you know, linked with whimsy and mystical tools and all those types of things. It actually started out in the early 1400s as a card game. It was an Italian card game called tarocchi, and a lot of families who were back then who were wealthier would actually commission really beautifully illustrated card decks that would be part of tarocchi. So this has a very long history. So it wasn't until the 18th century, really. It wasn't until the 18th century that tarot started to become more of a tool for fortune telling, or I guess spirituality and divination. So it wasn't really until that time that people really started to use tarot as a tool for connecting with wisdom and guidance. And a lot of this happened in different parts of Europe. A lot of that happened in France as well as we know it. And it also incorporated a lot of wisdom from different types of things, including astrology and Egyptian wisdom, the Kabbalah, and a lot of other types of symbolism that you see in the tarot deck today. And so, most of you, if you're familiar with tarot, you might be familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And so that was created in 1909 by an artist named Pamela Colman Smith, and also the occultist A.E. White. And so this deck really transformed how we practice tarot for today. And this is how a lot of people who practice tarot today, a lot of them use this deck primarily because the symbolism was, it was easier to understand, but it also was able to incorporate a lot of different symbolism into the deck. With that being said, I will say that tarot in general has a lot of symbology and there's a lot to unpack. So each card can tell you a lot of different things, even from just one card itself. And it can tell you different things based on what it is that you're asking and what it is that you're hoping to gain from insights from that card. So I'll just say that, today people really use tarot as a guide for self-reflection, as a guide for personal growth, for spiritual growth, and to gain more wisdom about themselves, to really tap into their subconscious. And I like to say that tarot is a mirror. So whatever is reflected in the cards is reflecting on your subconscious that might be difficult to tap into. I always think it's very interesting for healthcare workers because healthcare workers, I think by nature and what we do, we already have a very, I would say a very high level of intuition because of the nature of our work. So if you're a nurse who has been practicing for a while, you might have experienced a time where you had felt something knowingly in your gut that was, an intuition about your patient or about something that was happening. And then it turned out to be the right call. So I would say that no matter what position you are in healthcare, you have probably likely experienced a similar situation where your intuition guided you to either prevent harm for a patient or prevent a bad situation, or you just knew intuitively that something was going to happen that needed some action. So tarot can be helpful in that way, that it kind of can tap into that intuition that you already have and can reveal some insights that could be helpful for your journey. So I'm hoping that with today's event, we could look into that and see what the cards might be saying in general. So with that said, I do plan for this to be a more of an interactive event. So if you're joining us on LinkedIn or if you're joining us on YouTube, please feel free to write a comment in the chat if you are interested in sharing a comment or a question about tarot. And in general, I'm curious, for those who are watching right now, feel free to put in the chat how familiar you are with tarot. Does anyone on the call, or does anyone who's on the live stream right now actually own a tarot deck? Feel free to write that in the chat if you do. And then meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and bring out my tarot deck, which is influenced by the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I spoke about earlier. A lot of the imagery that is on this card, it's all influenced by that deck that was created in 1909. And so I typically like to use tarot for reflection on all different aspects of my life. I would say the main aspect that I like to use tarot for is for my career and to have guidance for my career and the different things that I'm pursuing. And so I will say that tarot, I was unknowingly brought to tarot through my nursing career. And the first time that I really learned about tarot was actually at carnivals in the Orange County Fair. And my friends and I would pass by this booth and it would have a tarot reader, and they would tell us, it'd be like a $10 type of reading, and they pull a few cards and then they just told us things that were coming up. And it's interesting because I don't typically use tarot as a tool for fortune telling. I don't really like to emphasize that tarot is a fortune telling tool, because in reality, all of us have free will and all of us can use our knowledge and our insights to determine our own futures. We are not, beholden to what the cards are saying or anything like that. We could still change our future, and we could still use our own free will to make choices about what we do in life. So I do like to say, just as a disclaimer, just as a preface, tarot is really not truly meant to be, just like used as only a fortune telling tool and to tell you what to do. It's really just there to give you additional insights so you can be more equipped when you're making your decision about what to do. So I do like to add that as a caveat, because I think there is a big misconception that tarot will tell you everything you need to know in the future, because when you hear that, you might not actually take any action. So a lot of the energies that are picked up with tarot are picked up in the present moment and kind of based on present influences. So I just want to share that because it's an important distinction for how you can use tarot in your own practice, and how you could use tarot in general as a tool for reflection. So I think that it could be pretty easy to think of tarot as a clutch for things if you are just hoping to know what's going to happen in the future. The truth is that we could always change our future. So I would just say tarot has been very insightful for that reason. But I did first learn about tarot by going to these different festivals where there would be tarot readers in booths or stands, and I would talk to them, and I always thought like, oh, that's so interesting, but I didn't really consider it as more of a serious reflection tool until I was in graduate school and learning to become a nurse practitioner. So when I was learning to become a nurse practitioner, I had gone through a lot of different challenges in my life, or just in that time. And it was a very difficult time for me. And I really wasn't sure if, continuing on my path of nursing was right for me. And so just on a whim, I just searched for a tarot reader in the area. And that was the first really formal tarot reading that I had pursued on my own. And I was really amazed by the insights that I received from that tarot reader. And I still actually remember the cards that she pulled, and I still remember a lot of the messages that she shared from my very first, formal 1 hour tarot reading. So I thought that, it was just interesting that it stuck with me. But one of the reasons why I also like tarot so much is because of the visuals that come with it. There are just so many beautiful images that come with tarot, and we're going to show you some as we do our reflection for today. But I just want to share that if you're a more visual person, or depending on how you like to remember or keep messages in your mind, one of the reasons why I prefer tarot is because it has that visual that you can see and you can remember. And sometimes the images are so powerful that it just sticks in your mind. So that's another reason why I also really like tarot. So with that being said, what I'm going to do, oh, and I will say that, from that first reading I had in graduate school, I just kept getting tarot readings ever since. So in general, I've been consulting tarot readings for over, oh my gosh, it's been over 12 years now. And I had started to do readings myself just in the last few years. So I started doing readings in 2022 for myself and for other people, and just really learning how to dive into it so I could grow in my spirituality and in my practice that way. And I can't wait to share that all with you today, because I do think it's a very powerful tool for your own spiritual practice or just your own growth. So with that being said, I'm curious if anyone in the chat has actually had a professional reading before, or if anyone has actually used a tarot deck before, if you have your own. Um, Feel free to add that in the chat if you have done that in the past, or if you have considered it. So if not, we could, I have done readings for a lot of people who are using tarot for the first time, or have never had a tarot reading before. So it's really interesting because I do both virtual and in-person readings on the side. And then in the end, a lot of the times the people who seek a reading are healthcare workers. So I don't know if that's because healthcare workers are also very intuitive and they just want to seek more validation for their intuition. Or I don't know if it's just because they are just on their own journeys of growth and they just can relate to someone who's a healthcare worker. So it's really interesting, I will say. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm shuffling my cards right now. So you might be hearing me shuffle the cards. And our event today, it's really meant to be a spring tarot reflection for healthcare leaders. And why healthcare leaders? I am a healthcare leader myself. I've been in healthcare leadership for the last almost 9 years, which is really amazing to think about that. And I think that there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity for healthcare leaders when it comes to their own spirituality and their own practices. And when it comes to their tools that they could use for their own spiritual growth and reflection. I feel like a lot of times there aren't a lot of resources for healthcare leaders to be able to grow their spirituality and their practice. And so if you're in a similar boat, if you're a healthcare leader, or if you're a leader in general, whether you're working at the bedside or in an office, tarot is a very helpful tool for everyone. So I did want to focus on healthcare leaders because I do think that the reflection is powerful and they may question themselves a lot. So I'm curious to see what comes up for healthcare leaders and what we could really lean into with this season. So it's interesting, as I've been talking and as I have been shuffling the cards, some cards have been just jumping out at me, so I've been putting them aside. Different tarot readers have different styles for shuffling the cards. And I will just say that sometimes when the cards jump out at you while you're shuffling, sometimes they really have messages that they want to share. So I typically tend to put those aside. I felt like it was the right thing to do for this reading. So what I'm going to do is take out 3 more cards. So I'm going to take out 3 more cards. All right. So I'm going to share with you all the cards that I drew, and we're going to go through it one by one. Very interesting. All right. So if anyone is out there right now watching this this live stream, I encourage you to put any questions in the chat that you are curious about. If there's any messages that you want to learn about from the tarot cards, and we could also see what the cards say about those questions that you have. So with that said, or if anyone wants a specific, if you have a specific question, you could put in the chat, or if anyone kind of wants to dive deeper and you want me to draw some cards for you specifically, let me know, and then we could see what comes up. All right, so I have pulled 6 cards in front of me. So it's really interesting because I didn't explain this earlier, but tarot has with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, there are a total of 78 cards. And so there are 22 cards. They're divided into, I guess you could say, 2 major sections. So with the typical Rider-Waite-Smith deck as we know it, that originated from the early 1900s, there are 78 cards. The first 22 are something that we call the major arcana. So very, very big key messages that you could learn about throughout the duration of your life or for a longer period of time. The rest of the cards, the remaining 56 cards, are more like court cards. So it's interesting because of the roots that tarot has with as like a card game or kind of like a playing card game. It kind of has that similar structure of different suits. So there's 4 different suits in the cards, and each of those suits carry different messages. And so in this spread, and that's a lot of information, and we can always go deeper later on, but in this spread of 6 cards, I have pulled 1 major arcana and 5 of the suit cards or minor arcana. So what we will look at first is, typically when I read this, I do like to look out for the messages that stick out first. Out of all the cards that come up, the one that sticks out first for me is the Star card. So the Star card is it's one of my favorite cards, and I will say it's a beautiful card too. And you could see there's this deck that I have here has a lot of this kind of foil, so it looks super beautiful. And the Star card is a really powerful message here because it's a card of hope. And so if you are a healthcare leader out there who's watching this, or just in general, the general message that I'm getting in terms of what we should know as healthcare leaders is that this is a time for hope. And this is a time to lean into what brings you back to that hope, what brings you back to yourself. It's really time to be, not selfish, but it's really a time to prioritize yourself in terms of what is it that gives you happiness and hope. It doesn't have to be something big, but it has to be something that you do and prioritize. So for me, that would be tarot reading. So actually this year and in general with Fifth Window, my co-founders and I have been leaning more into practices that are spiritual and more into practices that we would like to share with other nurses because it can help us to nurse our joy together and to uplift each other. And I think at the time when we were rebranding towards the end of last year, we didn't really realize why this message would be so important, but it was a message that really resonated with us. And then when the new year started and all these changes started happening and all these different events around the world really started to take place really quickly, it became more and more clear that this message for hope is something that is really necessary right now. Oh, and I see this message from Kathy. Yes, something like connecting joy with hope. So absolutely, we, with the Star card, it really is this connection of joy and hope. And these are just cards that I just shuffled right now. So it's really interesting that this came up in this reading, because I absolutely think that that's a message that we as healthcare leaders need to hear right now. And it's interesting too, because the next card I have right next to it is the Six of Cups. And so the Six of Cups is one of those suit cards I was talking about earlier. And this is a card about connection. And a lot of the times it could be considered just a card about your social circle. So, as healthcare leaders, we really need to think about who we are surrounding ourselves with. And that can be both for your personal and professional life. So, in terms of who we surround ourselves with, I think that we take for granted how important it is, um, who we keep in our circle and how that impacts our own energy and our own health. And I think a lot of times it's interesting, because this card has actually been coming up a bit for a lot of the nurses I've been reading for, and a lot of the healthcare workers I've been reading for. It's the card about your network and your social circle and who you keep close. And I think a lot of the times as nurses, we are people that are dependent on for a lot of different things in our personal lives and our professional lives. And I think that we could bear the brunt of a lot of different stressors for ourselves and for a lot of other people. But now it's a time that as we are prioritizing ourselves and our own joy and our own hope, how do we connect that with the people who we are surrounding ourselves with? Who do we choose who will not only be uplifting, but who will help us in our own journeys with hope? Who is someone who's not going to tear us down because we want to build up our own hope and our own spirituality and our own joy? Who's someone who's going to be part of that journey with us that we can really use to grow more rather than grow less? Because preserving your own peace is so important, and a lot of that has to do with who you choose to be around. It's interesting because we also, right next to that, we have this card. So this card is the Emperor. So this is another major arcana card, one of the first 22. And the Emperor is actually not a card that I see too much, but it's a card of grounding and stability. So when we are thinking about who we are as a person and what it means to bring ourselves hope, it also not only does it impact who we have around us, it impacts who we are as a person, and it gives us more stability in who we are, and it makes us feel more grounded with who we are as people. So the reason why it's so important to be in touch with ourselves and to really just have more time with ourselves alone, to find out who we are, it's because it keeps us grounded, and it's because it helps us learn more about what we really need to pay attention to. And it really helps us to be one with ourselves. So this is really a call to have this inner growth and to have this uplifting support system and support group, so we can really feel grounded and give ourselves permission to be who we've always wanted to be. It's so interesting because the word authenticity is a very big word to me this year, but I feel like it's also just a very big word to a lot of people, including healthcare leaders, for this year. I'm not sure if anyone out here has been in healthcare leadership for a long time, but if you have, or even if you've been in healthcare leadership for a short amount of time, something that you might not have seen a lot is authenticity from healthcare leaders or from people who you report to, or things like that. I think there's a lot of room for growth for all of us as healthcare leaders to be more authentic at work and to be more authentic in how we show up. And all these three cards that I just pulled are part of that. So being not being afraid to learn more about who we are, and then not being afraid to keep the people close to us who help us to be that person who we really are, and then staying grounded in that, and not kind of swaying and changing who we are just kind of based on like what other people who we see might be doing, or it's now time to really lean into our own authenticity. I will say that the last three cards in this pool are very interesting. They're all wand cards. So we have the Nine of Wands. These are three also suit cards. So we have the Nine of Wands, we have the Two of Wands, and we have the Ten of Wands. So it's interesting because wand cards are another suit. It's different from cups, but these represent a lot of energy, a lot of passion. there's a lot of work that we need to do to support ourselves as we're going through this process. It's not going to be like a quick journey in this season of spring. So in the next few months, definitely know that it's not going to be a simple process to learn who we are. It's not going to be a simple thing to understand what we need to know about ourselves, but it is a journey that's worth having. And it is a journey that will ultimately benefit us in the end. One thing I will say about the Two of Wands, it's interesting because I actually just pulled this card for myself the other day. So this is a very relevant card, but the Two of Wands allows us to give permission to broaden our view. So I think and to zoom out. I think a lot of the time as healthcare leaders, we tend to look at our world with what's directly right in front of us, with the work that's right in front of us, with the day to day, with the to-do list that's right in front of us, just to get by. But this card really asks us to zoom out and to look at the bigger picture. Because as we are learning more about who we are and growing our own practice, we also really need to think about what that means in the larger sense of our life journey. And so there's a lot of reflection in these next few months for spring. The word that keeps coming up right now is regret. How do we prevent ourselves from facing regret because we didn't lean into who we are? So it's interesting. Like, I just keep thinking of like, how do we prevent this regret? Like, how can we look into not only what's in front of us, but broader past that? How do we venture into this authenticity and look at that in the larger scope of who we are without having regrets? That's something that we need to really lean into. And then the last card here is the 10 of Wands. So I get this card all the time for nurses and for healthcare workers. The 10 of Wands is a card about looking at all the things that we've picked up. So it's looking at what are all of the, I guess you could, I don't know if I want to say burdens, but what are all the things that we're carrying? What are all the things that we're carrying for ourselves? What are all the things that we're carrying for other people? What are all the things that we're carrying for our work? What are all the things that we're carrying for, our household? What are all these different things that we're picking, like bricks? Like, how many bricks are we holding? And how many of those bricks are weighing us down because we feel like it's a really heavy brick and it's really just making us feel very kind of discouraged or very kind of heavy in general, like that heavy feeling. How heavy are these bricks that we're carrying? Are these bricks that we're carrying really for us, or are they really for other people? And how can we figure out, when we look at what we're carrying, how can we figure out if we actually still need to hold some of these things? How long have you been holding on to these things? For me, I would say a lot of my bricks are related to a lot of these self-limiting beliefs I've had for a long time. I've had self-limiting beliefs about comparison. I've had self-limiting beliefs about doubt and about performance, about worthiness. And these are all bricks that I have carried for a long time in my journey. So I take this as a reflection personally for me to look at when I have these bricks. Why am I carrying it why have I been carrying it for so long? How does it serve me? How does it serve my hope and my inner peace? Does it have a place in this bag that I'm holding of my life journey? And I ask that of you all. What are the bricks that you're holding on to? Are they supportive? Are they things that will actually help you overall in the long-term sense, in the broader sense of your journey? Or are they just things that will, just make you feel more heavy rather than more grounded? So think of the difference between heaviness because of something that you're holding that feels like a burden, versus groundedness into who you really are and being satisfied with that. So it's something that we might not have really thought about a lot in the past, but I would invite you and encourage you to all think about that. What's the difference between the heaviness that we feel because we're grounded versus the heaviness that we feel because we feel like it's an obligation? So think about that. As healthcare leaders, there's a lot of different obligations that we have to ourselves, to our work, to our family, to our colleagues, to our patients. And so when you think of all these things as a whole, what are those things that still make sense to you in your journey? And what are those things that you feel actually give back to your own support and your own happiness? So these are the main messages I'm getting from today's reading, and I think that it's so interesting because there is a lot of bigger messages in this spread, but it's also talking about how we could pursue this from the day to day. So just looking at our own day, um, when we look at our own to-do list, how many of those to-do lists are things that you complete for yourself versus things that you complete for others first? Can you shift your workday so that you could focus on the things that you do for yourself first that you need to get done before you start to help others? So things like that, even just small mindsets of how you can change your day to day so that it's supporting you in the end and making you feel more whole and more grounded rather than so kind of caught up in others' bricks and others' sticks like in this photo, but how can we kind of think about that? Because as nurses, I think that's pretty easy, and as healthcare workers, it could be pretty easy for us to be given so many things to hold on to. But what are the things we really need to keep, and what can we let go and delegate to other people? So that's the reading for this morning. And I'm curious if anyone resonates with that message who's listening right now. You could feel free to share what you think about that in the chat. Um, and I'm curious to see what folks might say about that. Um, I'm also happy to draw a card if anyone has a specific question as you've been listening to this. I know that the concept of tarot can still seem very hard to grasp. At times it's really hard for even myself to grasp because sometimes it's like you wonder, is it all just a coincidence, all these cards that are drawn, or is there something greater there? For me, it's really interesting because I will say that a lot of the times the cards that I pull, because I'll pull a card for myself every day, um, I think it's really interesting because sometimes there have rarely been times where the cards that I pulled did not make sense for me. So if you're in healthcare, if you're in leadership, if you're a healthcare worker in general, and you're interested in tapping into your own insights and subconscious and reflection tool, and you want it to be something that's a little simpler than maybe journaling or doing something more active, I would say that something that you can do is to pull a tarot card and then see how it makes you feel. And that's actually sometimes what we really don't know about ourselves is the emotions that we're feeling. And that's a message that I will share too for healthcare leaders and just for healthcare workers in general. Sometimes we really can't label our emotions, and tarot is a really good tool to help you think about your emotions. So when you pull a card, you think about an emotion and you think about how it makes you feel, and then you see how those messages pop up in the day. And it's really, really, really interesting what might happen there. All right. So Kathy, yes, I can pull a card for you. So if you're listening, Kathy, I'm just shuffling the cards so you could tell me when to stop. Okay, let me just so when I'm doing virtual readings, I will actually sometimes know intuitively if it's actually because I actually do virtual readings where I'm with people, on a video call in real time, or I'm with people in person, like in a coffee shop. But I also have done recordings for folks. Okay, stop. All right. I've done recordings for folks too, where I will actually just know when I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I feel like I can feel when they want to stop too. But anyway, all right, I stopped. So Kathy, I pulled a card for you. Okay, so I pulled the Page of Cups for you. So it's another cup. It's another card in the suit of cups, and cups are all about emotions. And the Page of Cups is a beautiful card because it's about really diving into your curiosity and into your emotions. So as you go into this season of spring, remain open minded and remain curious about everything that you might be feeling. So when it comes to your emotions, stay curious, be really in tune with yourself, and And it really asks to keep an open mind. So I would say that this is, in general, Kathy, this is a good time to explore your emotional self, your emotional journey, your emotional healing, and just kind of see what comes up. It could be very simple. It could be a very simple thing. Just even like as you're going through the day, what are the things that make you feel happy? Like, what are you gravitating towards and what are you not? This, I think, will help give you a lot of information just in terms of what you need to know in general for your journey, or just in general what to know for yourself. So pay attention to your emotions and pay attention to keeping that curiosity open, and to keeping everything like from that standpoint and from that lens of asking questions, whether it's asking questions for yourself or asking questions of others, not being quick to assume things, but always from that standpoint of curiosity. So anytime things don't make sense, ask yourself a question, ask others more questions, and I think it will help provide some more insights. Of course, this is just one card. We can always dive deeper in a different time, but I would just say ask more questions. And this is a good, actually, that's a great tool for a tip for a lot of people, including myself. So, all right. So I see a message from Ethel. So let's see, pull a card as the end of March is very near and wide open for me as at the International Caregivers Association. Okay. Oh, great. Okay. So Ethel, if you are listening, I'm just shuffling the cards. So tell me when to stop shuffling, if you're listening. Oh, Atel, sorry. Thank you so much. So Atel, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong still, but feel free to let me know when to stop. All right. All right. Thank you so much. So I went ahead and stopped shuffling. Okay. So this card, I draw this card all the time for everybody. So this is a very interesting one. So this one is the Lover's card. So the Lover's card, it's actually a Gemini card. So before I had mentioned how tarot has a lot of symbology from a lot of different modes of wisdom and divination, including astrology. So the Lover's card is actually a Gemini card. Um, and I will say that the Lover's card is a very timely one too, because as we have seen in this spread, it's a lot about self-reflection. It's a lot about who we surround ourselves with. It's a lot about who we are. The Lovers is different in that because it's a major arcana card, it packs all those messages into one card. So the Lovers card is a card about alignment. And it is, oh yeah. Oh, you're a Pisces. Oh, that's great. Um, so I would just say the Lovers card is all about your alignment to yourself internally, so your internal values. It's all about alignment to your external surroundings, your environment, and it's also in alignment with your spirituality and your higher self. So I would say that as you're looking into the work that you're doing with ICA, what will be really important is looking for that alignment, doing things because it's in alignment with your internal values, the external values of what you're looking for, what you want to surround yourself with, and also because it aligns with you at a higher purpose with your spirituality. So I draw this card a lot, and it's interesting because I draw this card a lot for healthcare workers. And I think a lot of us are at this point where we are kind of thinking about, what are my values? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Like, who do I want to be around? What is the environment I want to be around? And so this is a very relevant card, I would say, in general. It's really a time to think about what we choose to do because it's in alignment with who we really are, versus I'm just doing something because someone told me to, because I think I'm supposed to. I think in healthcare, I will say that a lot of people in general can tend to do things because they see other people doing it and they think that's where the path that they're supposed to be on. Um, and I will say that it's really hard to kind of break away from what you think your expectations are supposed to be in nursing, in healthcare, in work in general. You think you have to pursue this one path because it's what you're told or because it's what you have seen other people do, or you think it's the expectation of your journey. Especially in leadership, we can only see, sometimes we have this tendency to only see this one ladder that you just keep going on the same ladder that everyone else is going, and you're all just climbing up that ladder. The reality is that your own path is what you make of it based on what these three things are of your values: your internal, your external, your spiritual. So I would just say, as you're going through this journey, continue to think about that as your grounded message. As your focus. If you have decisions you have to make, think about all those three things. Are they all in alignment? Or am I just doing something just because someone told me to? And I'm guilty of this. I think everyone we know has been guilty of this, but this is because this is a time for self-reflection and authenticity. We really need to be firm in our boundaries for who we are, because that will set the tone for this season, for this year, and for the rest of our lives, if I'm being honest. Um, and let's see here. Living my life versus the first business model of dementia care. Oh, amazing. And a new theory in dementia. Oh, that's amazing. That's so great to hear. Thank you for sharing about your purpose. And I would say that knowing that purpose and sticking to that and being firm in that will help you as you grow and as you continue on in your journey. And it could be so easy to be distracted and kind of look at all these different things. But the one thing that we have grounded is our sense of self and our sense of our values and our authenticity. And I think that that purpose you have is amazing, and it could really help you as you move forward. So I hope that was helpful. And Kathy, I hope that your card was also helpful too earlier. And oh, love that. Keep your soul clean and your boots sturdy. That's great. And then Alika, great to see you. Uh, yes, manifestation work is so important. Oh my goodness, we could talk about manifestation in a different event. There's so much to learn about manifestation, and oh my gosh, I've been learning. So in addition to my tarot reading, I have been learning a lot about human design, and human design is also it's also kind of similar to what you might associate with like astrology, where you kind of need your birth day, your birth location, and your birth time to give you all this information about who you are. And human design draws from all these other different types of ancient wisdom as well. But one of the things that human design really focuses on is manifestation. So depending on who you are and what your energy type is based on your human design, you could learn a lot about how to manifest appropriately. So you could, because it's not commonly known, but there's actually very different ways that you can manifest. Everyone usually thinks that manifestation's just like you have a vision board and that's like how everyone's supposed to manifest, but that's not true. Everyone can manifest differently depending on their specific energy type and also just depending on who they are. So sometimes if you're trying to do a vision board and it just hasn't been working, it's probably because of what your energy type is, and you have different ways that you can actually manifest. So I would say maybe we could talk about that at a different time, but about human design. But manifestation's very, very big, and I would say that for healthcare leaders, we could absolutely utilize manifestation as a tool to support us and also keep us grounded and also keep us focused on who we are. And let's see, I'm building a strong leadership team and several important players are entering the space. Is there any card that is spot on in your deck? Let's see. So I would say we could, question like that would be something to dive into more of a personal reading. I will say, because you're building a strong leadership team, that is kind of reminding me of that Six of Cups that we drew earlier for the group. This really does have to do with a lot of the times when you're doing a reading focused on career, this would be considered a card that you think about who your team players are in your work that you're with. And for anyone, Tarot resonates with different people in different ways, and meanings resonate in different ways. So even as I talk about a message, it could land differently to the person who's listening to it. I will say that the leadership team that you're building, if it's in relation to the Six of Cups, it should be a group that all is in alignment. They could all be able to unify and rally together to support each other. It's all about a very supportive team. So sometimes as healthcare leaders, we might choose to hire a team of people because we think it's like, oh, they're all like really strong people. Sometimes we have to think about the people individually, but we also have to think about how the people work together as a team. So with all these people that you're including in your leadership team, would they all work really well together? Is it a group that could be harmonious in that sense? Could they all rally around that same mission and vision? Those are things that are really important to think about. But of course, again, so more of that question could be, we could look into something more like that in a more kind of detailed reading. but I will say that these other cards are relevant. And then if you're thinking about a strong team, I also find that it's relevant for the 10 of Wands, because you need to be able to have a team that you could depend on, who could pick up slack and other things, like who can work together. And there's no ego, there's no fighting. It's just kind of, you could all kind of seamlessly work together, and you understand the work that needs to be done, and people could carry their own sticks, their own bricks, and work harmoniously in that way. So I don't know if I answered your question, but those are the things that came up there. And I will say, let's see. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to say that as Fifth Window has been growing, we are going to be doing more private events too. So in the month of April, we're going to be sending out an invitation to people who are on our mailing list to join us, and also on LinkedIn. But if you're interested in learning more about our events, I would say to join our mailing list, because which you could access on our website. So that's www.fifthwindow.com. Because if you're on our mailing list, you will be the first to learn about the different events that we have for the month. So we're planning to have more private events that you could register, and they will be more intimate groups. And then we could really dive deeper into these different practices, especially with spirituality. So Kathy is on this. She's joining us live today too. She's a Reiki practitioner. She's my co-founder. And, with myself doing tarot readings, we feel like there's really an opportunity for more healthcare leaders to lean into their spiritual practices and just lean into these different types of healing that they can do outside of nursing and outside of healthcare. So stay tuned for that, because we are, we're growing this all organically and learning all these as we go. And we really want you all to join us for that journey. And we think that we could all learn together doing that. And oh yes, let me put that in the comments. So let's see, fifthwindow.com. So this is our website, and we will be updating the website so it has more of the updated events. So just stay tuned for that. But the website is www.fifthwindow.com. And I think a lot of people are joining from LinkedIn, so I'll put it on the LinkedIn as well. Let me see here. So while I'm doing that, I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, so I'm happy to answer any final questions that anyone might have as I'm typing this link into the chat and multitasking. But is there any final question that that others might have? Let me just put this link in the chat. fifthwindow.com. Let's see, our website. Okay, there. That took me a while, but I put the link in the chat. So it's www.fifthwindow.com. So definitely join us there, and we'd love to have you all. I think it had, let me just say here. And it's so cool to see you all joining us on a Saturday morning. I know that the Oh, sorry, I put it again, I guess. But so I know that it's a Saturday morning, so there could be so many other things that you're doing, but I really, really truly appreciate you joining me and Kathy and our Fifth Window team this morning. Um, this reading actually really, really resonates with myself personally a lot. And I hope that what you all learned today has been very, very helpful as you all think about your own journeys. Tarot has, I would say, it's so crazy. I would say that tarot, when I get readings for myself or when I do readings for other people, a lot of the time, the majority of the messages are very, very relevant. So I'd say if you're new to the practice, definitely look into that or other tools like Reiki, which Kathy will be sharing more of in our events. Oh, yes, I am in California. So I am in the Bay Area. I'm in the West Coast. Kathy's in the East Coast. So we have kind of coast to coast covered. But we're looking to do more in-person events in the future too. So absolutely, if you're interested in joining us for our events, whether they are some of our live events or in person, we would love to have you. And if there's different events that you're looking for, we're also very open to that. So with that said, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning and for joining us as we have been reflecting on the start of the season, the start of spring, and just some messages that we could really lean into as we head into the next few months of this year. And just as a recap, I'll just recap the 6 cards that we drew. So we had the Star card, which is really telling us, I'll pull all the cards and then I'll say the message. So we have the Star card, we have the 6 of Cups, we have the Emperor, we have the 9 of Wands, we have the 2 of Wands, and then we have the 10 of Wands. Whoop, yeah, and we have the 10 of Wands. So with these 6 cards, the message is to really lean into our joy, and to lean into our authenticity, and that includes being with the people who make us feel whole, being with the people who help us in our journeys and not take us down, and being able to preserve our peace by being able to explore that and giving ourselves permission to be who we want to be and who we know we want to be, even if it doesn't make sense to other people. How can we do that? We can do that by trying new things with the 9 of Wands. We could do that by exploring things, zooming out with the 2 of Wands, and then really thinking about who will be there to help us pick up our bricks, really thinking about what those bricks are for us, what's been weighing us down versus what's keeping us grounded. So overall, just a message of being our authentic selves during this springtime and not being afraid to explore who we are. So as I leave you all for this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're calling or joining us from today, I just want to say thank you so much for being who you are, for being leaders in healthcare, for being in healthcare in general, or just for doing out there, doing just being you. Thank you for that. And I appreciate you all. We look forward to the next event, and we will put more of that information as well on our LinkedIn page. But you could learn about that if you join our mailing list on our www.fifthwindow.com website. So thank you all again. A really, really wonderful interaction today and engagement. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event. So thank you, everyone. I hope you take care of yourselves this weekend and definitely dedicate some time to learning about your authentic self. All right, we'll see you at the next event. Bye.